This is the wildest survival challenge I've ever witnessed.
For 14 days in the snowy mountains, they hunted porcupines and feasted on meat daily, also catching and roasting big fish. Before the challenge, they trained by hiding in refrigerators, taking ice baths, and eating ice popsicles. This episode's location is the Denali Mountain Range in Alaska, just 300 miles from the Arctic Circle. Even in summer, temperatures stay below zero, with hypothermia and frostbite as the main threats. Two seasoned contestants return, but it's their first time in such snowy conditions.
Surviving in such snowy mountains is a first for them. The male contestant is Steven, with a survival rating of 8.6, and the female contestant is Laura, with a survival rating of 9.1. This is the ultimate challenge that will push me to my limit. They arrived at the destination by helicopter, and even stripping down here is a challenge. Steven felt an instant chill from his feet to his head as he walked on the snow. The snow was very thick, making it difficult to walk, so Laura crawled through it. After just a few steps, Laura's foot gets cut by a sharp rock. This means there are many hidden dangers beneath the snow. In the snowy mountains, a foot injury is very dangerous. With temperatures below 32 degrees, exposed skin can easily get frostbitten.
When the skin underneath freezes, blood flow to those areas decreases, leading to pain and numbness. Prolonged lack of blood flow can cause tissue death and potentially result in the loss of toes. In such an environment, even with clothes, you can get frostbite, let alone being injured and naked. Every step could be risky. After possibly being cut by rocks, Steven and Laura finally met up. As familiar partners from previous challenges, they were very excited. The show provided them with basic supplies like a pot, fire starter, fishing gear, and a machete, along with 2 deerskin garments for warmth. They needed to walk 3 kilometers to the foot of the mountain for the challenge. There was a river nearby, with black bears and trout in the area. Although food was abundant, the danger was significant. Carrying dozens of pounds of fur, Steven, despite being a strong man, couldn't carry it all, so Laura took the initiative. However, the weight made it extremely difficult to walk in the snow, consuming a lot of energy. After crossing the snowy terrain, they encountered many small puddles formed by melting ice. Drinking this water directly shouldn't be a problem. They lay on the ground to drink, then continued their journey, aiming to reach their destination before nightfall. Along the way, they found many berries, a common food in the snowy mountains and one of the easiest to obtain. They collected a lot of berries, demonstrating their strong survival instincts by gathering any food they came across. This way, they could keep their energy levels up in the cold. Knowing how to use available resources is crucial for any survivor. By 8 p.m., the sun was still up due to the high latitude, but the temperature was dropping fast. They needed to find a spot to build a shelter. They found a windbreak slope with plenty of dry grass and decided to set up camp there. Steven chopped branches while Laura gathered moss for insulation. Moss, with its thick fibers, can absorb moisture and air, making it a good insulator. Laura decides to use the moss to make a bed. The two have a clear division of labor, and Laura's approach clearly shows the difference between a strong participant and a bystander. By 9 p.m., the wind starts to pick up, and they begin to feel cold. Steven and Laura are at risk of losing body heat rapidly due to the low temperatures. By 10 p.m., the weather worsens, with strong winds blowing fiercely. The moss they collected is scattered everywhere, making it crucial to start a fire for warmth. Steven lights a fire directly in the grass pile, but oh boy. I told you to start a fire for warmth, not to set the whole mountain on fire. When Laura returned and saw the shelter burning, she quickly used snow to put out the fire. They then rebuilt the shelter in the same spot, thinking it might be warmer to sleep there. It was 11 p.m., and although it was still light out, they needed to rest as soon as possible. After a lot of work, they finally finished building the shelter. The wind was strong, and even with fur for warmth, they were shivering and couldn't sleep. Laura broke down and cried, but after a while, she lay down and tried to sleep. The next day arrived. They woke up early to pack because they still hadn't reached their challenge destination. Although it was only a few kilometers away, it took them 2 days to get there due to the difficulty of walking on snow. They had to walk along the edge of the grassland, starting their journey at 6 in the morning and continuing until after 5 in the afternoon. They finally arrived at the foot of the mountain, where the greenery was lush. They saw huge moose tracks and even spotted 2 moose passing by. If they could catch one, it might bankrupt the show. Although they had left the snowy area, they were now in a region of dead moss and decaying vegetation. Cold water gathered on the surface of the moss, making it almost like walking in wet snow. They finally reached a cloud forest, which was perfect for setting up camp. The cloud trees provided a natural windbreak for their shelter. They planned to lay down dry grass and use available fur for comfort.
After planning, they began building the shelter, clearing branches to create a roof.
They used the abundant clay to insulate the fire pit, preventing Stephen from burning down the shelter again.
By 7 in the evening, they had finished the shelter and lit a fire for warmth. I couldn't understand why they didn't use the extra fur to cover themselves.
The next day, they planned to focus on gathering protein. However, they had to face not only the cold but also the abnormal day-night cycle. Even at night, they couldn't sleep with their eyes wide open. It rained heavily in the middle of the night, and although there was still sunlight, there was no real darkness, making it feel like daytime. On the third day, the morning was gray and drizzly, feeling very cold. They planned to go out hunting for protein today. They went to the river to fish, and sometimes I really couldn't understand why they had to stand in the river to fish.
While fishing, Laura saw an eagle surveying the area from the sky.
The eagle's behavior excited Laura because its posture indicated it was diving to hunt, which meant there was prey nearby.
Laura followed the eagle's direction to investigate and indeed found a prey's carcass in a tree. Laura's survival knowledge and keen insight truly amazed me.
I have to admire Laura, who, with a 9.1 rating, climbed the tree and knocked down the porcupine.
Stephen assisted from the ground with a stick. After some effort, they finally subdued the porcupine. Laura's method of securing prey was impressive. True survivors never complain about their environment.
Back at the shelter, they roasted the porcupine meat, made berry jam, and enjoyed a hearty meal. They froze the leftover porcupine meat to preserve it in the permafrost, a type of soil in high-latitude regions that remains frozen.
Laura stored the remaining meat underground.
The meat is kept underground, and seeing the survival knowledge they show, I was really surprised again and again, and I had to admire and praise them again and again that they were strong, and it was almost impossible to sleep every night because there was no nighttime here to come to the fourth day, and they got up in the morning in a very good spirit, and Stephen took out a piece of meat from the ground. For breakfast today, the meat was still fresh despite being frozen overnight. They made survival in the snowy mountains seem like a vacation with their good meals.
At 3 a.m., a grizzly bear showed up near their shelter, scaring them awake. If it had attacked, who do you think would have won? On the fifth day, they were living on stewed meat every day. A porcupine kept them well-fed and sleeping soundly. By the eighth day, the cold weather was making them burn a lot of energy. With a week left, they needed more protein to sustain themselves. Today, they decided to go hunting again. Stephen hoped to catch a bunch of fish, which was a good idea, but who knows if it would work out. The river water was freezing cold. Stephen decided to make a long wooden stick to use as a fishing rod. He placed the stick in the water, attempting to fish automatically, hoping to get more protein this way. On the ninth day, Stephen woke up early, driven by hunger, eager to check the fishing trap in the river. They were desperate for protein. Unfortunately, the trap yielded nothing this time, and their hands were trembling from the cold. In such a freezing environment, not having food was truly unbearable. On the 10th day, they were so cold they didn't want to get out of bed, but they still had to check the fishing trap. Laura. They kept looking for more porcupines, hoping for a successful hunt. Porcupines often hide in the dense, branched dead angles of trees, making them hard to spot. Stephen's fishing trap. Still nothing. By 4 p.m., they returned empty-handed. It was the 11th day, and 3 days of searching for porcupines had yielded nothing. They should have baited the fishing traps. It felt like trying to catch a wolf with bare hands. On the 12th day, they hunted almost daily. The scary part was expending energy without replenishing it, rapidly depleting their fat reserves as the temperature dropped. Their movements became sluggish and uncoordinated, posing life-threatening risks. Tonight's strong wind made it an especially grueling night without any prey. Laura decided to play the role of the prey, seemingly driven mad by hunger. They searched the ground for edible berries. On the 13th day, with their departure scheduled for tomorrow, they still planned to fish in the river, fearing they wouldn't have enough food. They spent the entire day fishing, and finally, they caught 2 big, fat fish. The 2 fish they caught were enough to satisfy their hunger. After days of frustration, they finally had a successful catch, bringing Stephen to tears of joy. They cooked the fish right away, savoring the most delicious meal they'd had in days. Each night had been a struggle, with barely any restful sleep. On the 14th day, their departure day, they still had to trek 5 kilometers to the extraction point, crossing a freezing river. Despite the bone-chilling challenge, they reached their destination and successfully completed the Snowy Mountain Survival Challenge. Enduring hunger and cold, they triumphed through sheer skill. Who's up for the next challenge? Stay tuned!